friends. Hello. Today we're going to have live discussing the most interesting recent immigration news with me, Attorney Alena Shautsova, New York immigration lawyer. We do this at least every Tuesday and sometimes twice a week. So welcome to my live show. We're going to talk about very important changes in immigration, no bond policy that is being implemented by ICE. We will talk about firing of immigration judges and how it may affect your case. TPS updates with regard to nationals from Afghanistan and Cameroon, and of course, deportation to third countries. I do have a video about that on my social media, but we're going to talk about this one more time because it's just very, very important. So thank you very much for joining. Please support my channel by liking the show and sharing it. And of course, type up your questions. Say hi. If you don't have any questions, let me know where you're watching from. And let's start. We do have a lot to discuss. It's been it's just only Tuesday, but we already have so many different things to talk about. As you see, changes in immigration are happening now on an hourly basis, not even on a daily basis, hourly basis. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is, as reported by the Washington Post, ICE implements a new policy where undocumented immigrants will be ineligible for bond hearings. They're citing a paragraph of the law that has never been interpreted this way previously, at least not in the past 20, 30 years. And they're saying that if you enter the United States without inspection, you are not eligible for bond, regardless of when you entered. It means that people who filed for I-601A waivers, for example, if they lack initial legal entry, now may be subjected to prolonged detentions. Why? Because government has the information and they can very well send them notice to appear. It also means that people who are applicants for asylum, who filed for asylum and are waiting for their interview, but they do not have legal entry, may be subjected to this detention policy. VAWA applicants, U visa, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, the memo itself has not been published. I did not find it. I found only restatements of the memo by the mass media. So I do not know if certain what we call humanitarian applicants are exempt from this policy, but it's definitely is a concern that regardless of what you're filing and what's happening in your life, you may be subject to this mandatory detention without eligibility for bond. People started already asking me questions. Where will they have the money to keep all these people, right? Well, they're going to have the money because remember on July 4th, they actually passed the law giving the government incredible amount of funds to expand the amount of detention beds. Okay, so they will have the money. Just understand that. So that's what's happening with the no bond policy. I think that it will be challenged because I do not think that people who have been here for more than 2 years, regardless of the manner of entry, should be subject to this provision of the law. But of course, we're going to see how it's all going to be developing. Now, interestingly enough, 15 more judges, according to, again, media, right, were fired by the Trump administration. They stated that starting July 22nd, their services are no longer in demand by Trump's administration. It seems that from the beginning of the year, in about 6 past months, about 50 judges were fired. And trust me when I say that each judge means a lot for the court system because of the tremendous caseload that the courts are facing. So if you may be affected by this if the judge was an active judge and not somebody who just underwent training, because then what is happening, your judge has to be reassigned and your hearing date may change. All right. We do not know why they're firing these judges because they do not share the reason. All I can tell you that the judges that were fired were from Massachusetts, Illinois, Ohio, Texas, New York, and California. And you know that New York and California are the most two, the friendliest jurisdictions for immigrants. But you need to know that it may affect your case in terms of speed and in terms of reassignment of the judge. So just if they fired active judges, okay? Also, there is a little positive update with regard to TPS for people from Afghanistan and Cameroon. Federal judge temporarily blocked termination of their TPS, so it will continue at least until July 21st. I know it sounds like not long, but at least it gives plaintiffs a chance to collect more arguments in their favor, that the TPS status should not be terminated just like that for nationals of these countries. We know that there are other lawsuits challenging TPS termination for nationals of other countries. I find it very interesting that this administration, as soon as they took office, they decided to terminate TPS for almost every designated country. How is it possible, if we talk objectively, that previous administration stated that the country conditions in those countries were dangerous, and just one day later they're saying, the new administration is saying that they're not? I find it impossible, but this is where we stand. By the way, some judges find it interesting too, and that's why they're blocking this decision, saying that it's just not a proper procedure and you didn't have enough information or didn't put enough effort into trying to actually evaluate the conditions in those countries. So your termination is not motivated by the true change in conditions of those countries. So that's something that you need to know if you have TPS. Look, if you can change your status to something else, file for something else, look for these updates, because you need to know for how long your work permit is valid. You need to know what your options may be. Do you have to leave the country? Do you have an opportunity to come back, and things like that? So it's very important to stay on top of this TPS news. And of course, you need to know that in connection with all these changes that we're seeing in courts, upon termination of the TPS, the government will be issuing notice to appear to you if you are not in removal proceedings. If you are in removal proceedings and your case has been administratively closed, they will be reopening the case against you. Listen, they can reopen the case against you even if you're now in active TPS status. They will now no longer be dismissing the case if you have an active TPS status. They will be simply administratively closing it back. So it sounds to me like a waste of time, but that's what it is, okay? And finally, again, I would like to report on very important announcement that Trump's administration is going to be deporting people to third countries they've never been to, countries they have no connection with. And all they need is a general assurance by that country that these deportees from the United States are not going to be tortured once they're sent there. That's it. They don't have to have assurances that this specific person is going to be safe, which is extremely, extremely unsettling. So I guess you have to take that into consideration as well to some extent, right? It's not for everybody. It's not everybody's going to be sent to those third countries, but this is something that you need to know about, and this is something that is developing. And of course, to me, sounds like a violation of everybody's due process rights. But unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court basically authorized Trump administration to do so. So that's why they are doing it, because nothing can stop them at this point. All right. And now, if you guys have some immigration questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. I know it's a little bit late. See where we stand. Hi, Miss MD Saludin. Good morning from Bangladesh. Nice to see you here. Hi, Gingermere. Okay. Hi, Gingermere. You have a little question. Will I be asked about my previous marriage? I didn't file anything. Going to file I-130 soon. Not sure what that previous marriage was about. Was it with a US citizen that you entered into that marriage for a short time and you didn't file for any documents? Perhaps that's your question. Yes, let me ask you about what was the reason why you divorced, and why there was no sponsorship if your spouse was a US citizen. Okay, so absolutely, they can ask you anything they want. All right, you have to be ready with anything pretty much. Just understand that. By the way, in connection with this detention policy, which is very, very unsettling, the news about the detention policy change. You need to understand that if you are detained, it's extremely hard to fight for your case. Okay? Extremely hard to impossible. Why? You don't have access to your documents. Your family members, hopefully, they're organized, they will be able to help you, but not always. So you need to have a plan and you need to prepare. You may pre hire an attorney if you are worried about your case, and share some of the key files with that attorney so they have access to them. And I also am thinking that there will be challenges to this policy if, in fact, it's going to be implemented widely, right? And of course, individual challenges to this policy also should be happening. Of course, it takes resources. That's the problem, and that's what the government is counting on. That immigrants just will give up too soon, right? However, we do have some amazing non-for-profits like ASAP, I call them ASAP, CASA, CASA, of course, ACLU, American Immigration Lawyers Association, who are trying to challenge these policies. But again, before they do that, I'm sure that just as we've seen with deportations to third countries, some people probably, unfortunately, will become victims of these policies. Okay. Hi, Edwin. If your case was dismissed without even having a court date, is there anything to be done? Well, I guess there was a prosecutorial discretion at the time, right? And the case was dismissed. Usually, such dismissals were without prejudice, meaning that the government can restart the case against you at any time. And I'm not sure about the anything to be done. If you have any other ways to get status or work permit, consult with an attorney, and they will be able to tell you what's happening with that. Now, let me answer some questions from my very beautiful, very smart, amazing followers from TikTok. Hi, Israel, no more bonds. Why? Well, because the government wants to detain as many people as possible. They got the money, right, through that reconciliation bill July 4th. So that's what they're trying to do. It's also like a policy to scare people, I guess, so they would self deport because nobody wants to be in that prison, right? Can you travel outside of the country while waiting for I-751 approval, waiting for 10-year green card? I do not recommend that. I have consulted a couple of people who had issues coming back, and they had no warnings that they're going to have problems. But what happened was that their I-751s were denied while they were traveling. Okay, and when that happens, you will be detained at the border. At least these people were, and the judge would have to rule on their release, and it's just a nightmare. So it's better not to travel if you absolutely must travel. Of course, consult with an attorney. What's going to be your emergency plan? How long your green card was pending? It's also important, right? If it's been pending for a long time, definitely don't go. If you just file, chances are they're not going to deny it so soon because processing takes time. So it all depends on the facts, okay? High positive thoughts. What about those who have been granted asylum and pending green card applications? No updates, guys. I don't have any positive news, unfortunately. We're going to see what's going to happen with those category of cases. All right. Thank you very much for your gifts. Let's see. Thank you guys for following and sharing, of course. Thank you for sharing the stream. When people filed I-130 spouse permanent resident on July 22nd, the approval, when the approval is going to be, if they filed in July of 2022, it's hard for me to guess. I wouldn't know. It also depends what country the beneficiary spouse is from. Okay. Can you travel outside of the country? Yes, we talked about that. All right. Let's see. Granted asylum, yep. True. What state are we working in? Well, we're based in New York. My firm is based in New York, but we do help people from all 50 states and overseas as well. I got two recommendations from Department of State for 212E waiver, one favorable and one a denial. What to do? It's a mess. We've seen conflicting notices for the interview, conflicting notices for hearings in courts. I would suggest that your lawyer has to reach out and see what's happening and what the final take on that is. The dates, I guess, would matter. Which one came later, right? Which one was the true one? I'm sorry, it's such a mess, but I think your lawyer will have to reach out and figure it out with them, okay? All right. What is the minimum investment for EB2? There is no minimum investment for EB2. EB2 is an employment-based immigrant visa, and there are two kinds: EB2 national interest waiver or EB2 perm, when your employer has to file for perm certification. EB2 national interest waiver is preferred if you qualify for that because it's faster. All right. That's what it is. How long does it take after adjustment of status interview to get a decision? Hi, Torpedo. It all depends as well. Usually, if everything goes well and there are no extensive background checks, you're going to get your decision in about a week. All right. If the officer has certain questions, not clear how to rule in the case, it may take months and sometimes years. It may take a very long time. All right. Hi, Ken. What are the chances of winning in immigration court, especially for people who received NTA? Again, it depends on what those people are filing for and how strong their case is, right? We need to know their immigration history, their criminal history, what's been filed before, what's happening in their lives, what's happening in their country of origin, if they have any criminal convictions, because certain criminal convictions are going to disqualify the person from certain relief. So we need to analyze the entire life to be able to give you a moderate estimate. Plus, the judge matters a lot and the jurisdiction of the case, because sometimes jurisdiction plays a very important role. Why? Because the case law, immigration case law, is different in different states in the United States. Okay. Hi, Kelvin. I have a deportation order, I have a pending I-130 and pending U visa. I live in Oklahoma, thinking of moving to New England because of the Jimenez settlement. Do you think this is a good idea? Well, I guess discuss with your attorney, right? If that's going to help, I'm going to tell you that changed ICE policies are going to find you anywhere. You have to understand that. Well, hopefully, they're not going to go direct after U visa. Pending. In fact, they do have a memo saying that they have to assess the situation for U visa pending on a case by case basis. And so far, I have not seen any negative memo where they would say that they don't care if you have a U visa pending. I did see memos saying that if you are a victim of a crime, U visa it means a person has been a victim of a crime. You have to advise them of that, of your status. They're no longer going to ask you actively if you are. You have to tell them that you are, and then they're going to perhaps ask you follow-up questions, assess the situation, and then they will determine whether or not they're going to continue with enforcement. All right. That's my best advice to you. You know, using this little time that we have. Again, it's not a full consultation. Depends on many different factors. Why you were deported also matters, right? Just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Those reasons for deportations are very, very important as well. All right. Thank you very much, Abdel. Let me see what questions on TikTok we have. How does the 10-year in cancellation of removal apply if you have been in removal for 10 years? Right. So I do have a great video about that on my YouTube channel. So you can save some money if you just have a little question like that instead of paying for a lawyer's consultation. What you are looking for is called stop time rule. When your 10 years in the United States are legally stopped when you're trying to calculate how many years you accumulated in connection with application for cancellation or removal for non-permanent residents. By the way, for you guys who are filing for this cancellation removal, you need to know that the fee increased tremendously from $130 to $1,500. But just so you know, it's like a side note. But the way it's calculated is under the stop time rule, is that the government looks at when you were served with a notice to appear and if you have criminal arrests when you committed the crime. Usually it's when you were arrested, right? At that time, your 10-year accumulation of the 10-year time stops legally. So you may continue living in the United States, but it stops legally. Well, of course, it's more complicated than that in certain situations because there are cases that stated if the notice to appear was defective, it didn't stop the time. But on top of that, there are other cases that stated that for that to work, your lawyer was supposed to object to it. So it's kind of a mess, you know, but it's worth checking. Your attorney will be able to review your file and let you know if the stop time rule applied or did not apply in your case, right? All right. Hi, Eve Bobadilla. I'm an asylee. I got my travel document. Is it still safe to travel with a refugee travel document? Well, yeah, you should be fine to travel with a refugee travel document as long as you never had any issues with your case. You should be fine. Okay. Hi, Aminata. How long does it take for you to receive VAWA receipt? I do not know. I'll be honest. Something happened with those VAWA receipts. We don't see them. At the beginning of the year, it took 90 days. Now it's even longer. So I'm not going to be surprised if you wait for your receipt for 120 to maybe even 180 days. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's true for every humanitarian case, be it a T visa, a VAWA case, U visa. Just keep in mind that it's going to take a very long time. All right. I got I-130 interview for my stepkids. What can I expect? Hi, and G Endo. Well, what's going to happen is that officers would like to know if you have the step-parent stepchild relationship. Okay, so they're going to be asking you questions about your day-to-day life, if you're supporting these kids, how your communications developing. Do you celebrate the birthdays together? What do you do for them? How often you go out together? If you live together under the same roof, things like that. So they would like to know if the relationship is real. All right. Just make sure you get prepared for that. Hi, Sam. I'm not a citizen yet, but I want to visit my family in Pakistan. Can I now, since we heard we can't? I don't know, Sam. It depends on your situation. If you're a green card holder, you should be allowed to come back to the United States. All right. If you're a green card holder. If you have some other status, consult with an attorney. If you guys want to consult with my office, please. 917-885-2261. I am booked about 2 weeks in advance with my consultations currently, but sometimes I can find time if there is a cancellation or change in my schedule. So just reach out to my office and they're going to tell you which first available time I have, all right? So we can look into the situation and see what you need to do for your case, all right? Hi, Sadiq, how to contact you with regarding adjustment of status. Right, so exactly, it's my office phone number. If you're watching me on YouTube or Facebook, that phone number is constantly displayed at the bottom of the video, 917-885-2261. So just reach out to my office, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday, and they will be able to find time for you. Or you can visit my website, shautsova.com. There is a function there, book a consultation, and you can book through the website as well. All right. Hi, Omar. TPS from Syria is set to terminate in September. Okay, in September. You're married to a green card holder who will be a citizen in 1 year. I-130 is filed. Priority date is March 2025. Provisibility and can file for adjustment of status will be in legal status. All right, so it's a little bit more complicated than that, Omar. People who qualify for TPS not necessarily can qualify for adjustment of status in the preference category. All right. So we would need to see how you entered the United States, if you had any status before TPS, do you have any deportation, immigration, court history, things like that. So that's what you need to know. Um, Sometimes a person with TPS can file for adjustment of status because of that, and sometimes they don't. All right. So just because you have TPS, it doesn't mean that you will be able to. And of course, we need to look at the visa bulletin to see if your case will be ready to be filed at that time. Just keep that in mind. All right. If you do have a legal entry, and your spouse is going to become a citizen, um, usually, all right? Usually. Even if you're placed in removal proceedings, the judges are going to give you time to go through that adjustment of status and wait for you or wait for your spouse. Usually, especially in cases where your spouse is about to become a citizen, in certain situations, your spouse is a green card holder but will be eligible for citizenship in 5 years. Well, then the judge is not going to wait for you. But if the spouse is going to be a citizen in like 5 6 months, they will give you a little bit of time. Most of the judges, at least in my experience, even the tough ones, right? Even the tough ones. So just keep that in mind, all right? Can I apply for a ED with I-130 approved by 45 denied? No. Guys, I-130 does not give you any status or an opportunity to file for a work permit. I-130 is simply a petition for alien relative. It reserves the immigrant visa for you so you can use it. Sometimes at the same time, when the paperwork is filed, sometimes you have to wait for the priority date to be current. And you can use the I-130 either in the United States, if you're adjustable, or out of the United States. You have to go through consular proceedings. And again, on my YouTube channel, I have an excellent video explaining who can get green card in the United States. And I literally, like a teacher, explain why. All right. So you will understand why and why not. All right. Okay. Let's see. Okay. If you guys have more questions, let me know. I know it's a little bit late and I do need to rest because tomorrow is another busy day for our firm. We have a lot of interviews right now. You need to know that every single case is being scheduled for the interview, be it adjustment of status, be it asylum. Tons of asylum cases are being scheduled. All of a sudden, all the cases that were filed in 2015, 16, and 17, all are being called for the interview. I've been talking about this before, and you need to know this. Please don't sit and wait. You have to start updating your case, preparing for that now, all right? Guys, if you're interested in how much the consultation is, I'm not going to be wasting this time here. On the website, I have different varieties for the consultations, different prices. You're also welcome to call my office and they will walk you through, because we do have different price depending on the mode of the consultation and the time, all right? Is petty offense exception is still the law? Yes, it's still the law. You still can use it when you file for US citizenship. All right. Okay, let's see. How long does it take to approve EED for deferred action from my daughter in the army? I guess you filed for parole in place, right? How long is it going to take? Well, I would only can tell you average 4 to 8 months. All right. It really depends on USCIS. I can't really tell you when it's going to happen for you, unfortunately. But the fact that you have a child in the military, of course, is a positive factor, and you should basically emphasize it heavily. All right. Just make sure that you highlight it for your case. Any U visa updates? Not really. I mean, not really, I wouldn't say. All right. Are they calling people who filed after the 2024 first? Yes, they also call people who filed recently first. You need to know that as well. Um, they stopped telling us how exactly they're scheduling cases. Why? Because the ombudsman's office is no longer there. Thank you very much for your gift. Thank you. The ombudsman's office, remember, there was a place where you could say, hey, my case is pending for too long. They don't send me my notices. They said they sent an RFE, but they never did. Well, Trump's administration eliminated it. And now American Immigration Lawyers Association is trying to advocate for it to be installed back. But I don't think they're going to give the money to that. And I don't have any hope that they're actually going to, reinstate it. Can I fly out of the country with my green card if I got a careless driving ticket but it's paid off? Careless driving. What state you were in when you received that? Is it a simple violation? That's what it was. Not a crime, right? Violation. Then you should be fine. But just listen, it's way too important. What I would say you do, you take it to a lawyer, take it to any lawyer, immigration lawyer, show it to them so they can verify the statute, right? To make sure it's not a crime, it's a violation, and it's like under a certain amount of money, so it's not serious enough to be a problem for you, okay? Usually it shouldn't be a problem, the traffic tickets. Who doesn't have a traffic ticket? I mean, sooner or later in life, if you drive, you're going to have at least one, right? All right. Just keep that in mind. All right, let's see if you guys have more questions. I know the news is not cheering. Listen, I am telling you, it's only Tuesday, but I feel like the minute you open the internet and all these notices that we receive from USCIS and ICE, they're just overwhelming. Every single second there is a new change, and it's not a positive one. Deportations to God knows where country you didn't know existed, or detention, perpetual detention until you win your case. Well, the case can be pending for months and years, especially if we don't have enough judges. Your case may very well go for 2 years and you're going to be in detention all this time, but that's what this administration is trying to do. Okay, it's really really bananas. All right, if you file W4 as a single being married, you will it affect your USCIS case? You submit. Okay, if there is an inaccurate tax information, it may affect your marriage-based green card. Please understand that. USCIS actually does pay attention to that because they're saying this: you cannot submit conflicting information to two different branches of the federal government. Okay, if you file single, your taxes, you submit to IRS that you don't live together with your spouse, but you say that you do live together to USCIS, there is a problem. Just keep that in mind, right? I think W4, it's like a tax withholding document, right? They're going to look at your taxes, actually, how you filed your taxes jointly, or what did you put in there. I think that's what's important for them. And of course, let your employer know to correct the withholding information so that you don't face any issues. But what happens if you file your taxes correctly, even if you underpay taxes, government is going to tell you to pay more. So there will be I don't think there should be any issues there, right? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for participating today. I hope you find this stream helpful. If so, please like and share it. And of course, follow so that we can meet again. And I will share the news, good or bad. We'll update you with regard to the most recent challenges and developments. And of course, we'll help you out a little bit by answering as many questions for free as I can. But if you do need to consult with me, please reach out to my office, 917-885-2261, and my team will be very happy to assist you. For now, please stay safe, healthy, and I hope to see you soon.